When executive assistant Sophia Chen discovers her billionaire boss, Nathan Cross, has been hiding a devastating secret about her father's death. She makes a choice that will change both their lives forever. But throwing coffee on the most powerful man in the city is just the beginning of a dangerous game of corporate espionage, betrayal, and deadly secrets. Hello, beautiful souls. Tonight's story will take you on a journey where hearts are tested and destinies collide. Let's dig in. The elevator's polished steel doors reflected Nathan Cross's haggard face as he descended toward what felt like his execution. 26. Floors down from the penthouse office where he'd built his empire. Each floor marking another year of his life sacrificed to Cross Industries. The coffee in his trembling hands had gone cold hours ago, but he clutched it like a lifeline. At 32, Nathan commanded respect through fear, but today that mask was cracking. The morning sun streaming through the glass walls of the 42nd floor executive suite felt more like an interrogation light than warmth. Every pristine surface, every carefully placed orchid, every symbol of his success now felt like evidence of his guilt. Sophia Chen's voice echoed in his memory from their board meeting an hour earlier. Her words had been professional, measured, but her dark eyes had held something that made his stomach twist with recognition. She knew, somehow, his executive assistant of 3 years had discovered what he'd hidden from everyone. The elevator opened to reveal the executive floor buzzing with morning activity. Nathan straightened his charcoal suit, forcing his features into the cold mask that had served him for so long. But as he walked toward Sophia's desk, positioned strategically outside his corner office, he felt the familiar weight of his deception pressing down like concrete blocks. Sophia looked up from her computer, her burgundy blouse a stark contrast against her pale skin. Her black hair was pulled back in its usual neat bun, but Nathan noticed the slight tremor in her hands as she reached for a stack of documents. The air between them crackled with unspoken tension. The Morrison contract revisions are ready for your review, Mr. Cross, she said, her voice steady despite the storm Nathan could see brewing in her expression. Took the papers, their fingers brushing for just a moment. The contact sent electricity up his arm, and he saw her slight intake of breath. For 3 years, he'd maintained professional distance, built walls higher than his skyscraper office. But those walls were crumbling now. Miss Chen, he began, then stopped. How could he explain what she'd discovered? How could he tell her that everything she thought she knew about him was carefully constructed lies? Is there something you need to tell me, Mr. Cross? Her question was a challenge wrapped in silk. Nathan set the documents on her desk, leaning closer than propriety allowed. The scent of her perfume mixed with the lingering aroma of coffee from the break room, creating a sensory memory he knew he'd carry forever. My office. Now. The command came out sharper than he intended, but Sophia didn't flinch. Stood. Gathering her tablet and the Morrison file, she moved past him toward his office. Nathan caught the subtle defiance in her posture. 3 years of his carefully orchestrated coldness, his deliberate emotional distance, his cruel little power games had been leading to this moment. Inside his sanctuary of dark leather and mahogany, Nathan closed the door and turned to face the woman who held his deepest secret. Sophia stood by his desk, her reflection caught in the floor-to-ceiling windows that showcased the city below. She looked fragile against the vast backdrop, but Nathan knew better. She was stronger than anyone gave her credit for. You read the Blackstone files, he said. It wasn't a question. Sophia's eyes met his, and in them he saw not just knowledge, but something far more dangerous. Understanding. I know what happened. In Singapore, I know about the missing funds. And I know why you really hired me. The words hung between them like a blade. Nathan had spent years perfecting the art of intimidation, but now he felt exposed, raw. The secret he'd buried beneath layers of corporate success was finally coming to light. What do you want? His voice was barely above a whisper. Sophia stepped closer, and Nathan caught the faint tremor in her breathing. I want the truth. All of it. No more games, no more cruel little tests. Tell me why you've been watching me, why you've been pushing me away, and why my father's name is in Those files. The last words hit Nathan like a physical blow. She didn't just know about Singapore. She knew about Dr. James Chen, about the night that had changed everything, about the guilt that had been eating Nathan alive for 7 years. Nathan sank into his leather chair, his carefully maintained composure finally shattering. "Your father," he whispered, "saved my life, and I'm the reason he's dead." Sophia's tablet slipped from her hands, clattering against the mahogany floor. The sound echoed in the sudden silence like a gunshot. She stared at Nathan, searching his face for any sign of the cold, calculating man she'd known for 3 years. Instead, she saw something broken, haunted. "Explain." The word came out strangled, barely audible. Nathan rose slowly, moving to the window that overlooked the city. His reflection in the glass looked ghostly, insubstantial. Singapore 2017, I was 25, arrogant, thought I could handle anything. Cross Industries was just starting to expand internationally, and I was there to close a deal that would have made us billions. The morning light cast sharp shadows across his face as he turned back to her. There was a fire in the hotel where I was staying. Electrical malfunction. In the lower floors? Your father was the emergency room doctor who treated me for smoke inhalation. Sophia's legs felt weak. She gripped the edge of Nathan's desk, her knuckles white. Her father had never mentioned Singapore, never mentioned Nathan Cross. But then, again, there were many things about her father's final years that remained mysteries. "He saved more than just my life that night," Nathan continued, his voice growing hoarse. "I was carrying classified documents about the Blackstone merger, information that could have destroyed 3 companies and cost thousands of jobs. Dr. Chen found them when he was treating me, could have sold them to the highest bidder. Instead, he gave them back." "That sounds like my father," Sophia whispered. James Chen had been a man of unshakable integrity, the kind of doctor who treated patients regardless of their ability to pay. Nathan's gray eyes met hers, and she saw years of suppressed guilt swimming in their depths. 2 weeks later, I learned that someone had leaked details about the Blackstone merger anyway. The leak was traced back to the Singapore hospital. Your father was investigated, his medical license suspended pending review. The room seemed to tilt around Sophia. She remembered that time, the stress that had aged her father overnight, the way he'd stopped sleeping, stopped eating. "He never told me what the investigation was about, because he was protecting you, and because he was protecting me." Nathan's hands clenched into fists at his sides. "I could have cleared him immediately. One phone call to confirm that he'd returned. The documents intact, but I was a coward. I was afraid of being connected to the scandal, afraid of what it might do to my company." Sophia felt something cold and sharp unfurling in her chest. "You let him suffer, I let him die." Nathan's voice cracked. The stress of the investigation triggered his first heart attack. By the time I finally made that call, it was too late. He died believing the world thought he was a criminal. The silence stretched between them like a chasm. Sophia could hear her own heartbeat, could feel the blood rushing in her ears. Everything she thought she knew about her father's final years was reshaping itself into something darker, more tragic. "So you hired me out of guilt," she said, her voice hollow. "I hired you because you deserved justice, because your father deserved justice." Nathan stepped closer, his movement cautious, as if approaching a wounded animal. "I spent 2 years looking for you after he died. When I found you working at that small firm downtown, brilliant but overlooked, I knew I had to bring you here." "To what?" "Torture me. Make me pay for his supposed crimes." Nathan's face twisted in pain. "To give you everything he should have lived to see you achieve. To make sure you had the career, the opportunities, the recognition he would have wanted. For you." Sophia laughed, but the sound was bitter, broken. "By humiliating me daily. By making me feel small and worthless. By pushing you to be stronger than I ever was." Nathan's admission hung in the air between them. "Every challenge I gave you, every impossible deadline, every test was meant to prove that you could survive anything. That you could succeed despite having a father the world believed was corrupt." The revelation hit Sophia like a physical blow. 3 years of pain, of swallowed pride, of late nights and impossible demands. All because Nathan Cross couldn't live with his own cowardice. "You destroyed my father to save your reputation," she said, her voice gaining strength. "And you destroyed me to ease your conscience." Nathan flinched as if she'd slapped him. "Sophia, I never meant to get out." The words surprised them both. "What?" Sophia moved around the desk, her dark eyes blazing with fury and hurt. "This is my office now. Get out." Nathan stared at her, confused. "You can't watch me?" Sophia's voice was steel-wrapped in silk. "I know about Singapore. I know about the Blackstone files. I know exactly how to destroy Cross Industries and everything you've built." For the first time in years, Nathan Cross looked genuinely afraid. "Sophia, please, let me explain you." Had 7 years to explain? 7 years to tell the truth? 7 years to clear my father's name? She stepped closer, close enough that he could see the unshed tears she refused to let fall. "But you chose your company over his life. Now I'm choosing justice over yours." 3 days had passed since Nathan's confession, and Cross Industries felt like a ship taking on water. Nathan sat in what used to be his office, now relegated to a smaller space on the 38th floor, while Sophia occupied his former sanctuary. The irony wasn't lost on him that she'd claimed his throne as effortlessly as she'd dismantled his carefully constructed world. Through the office walls, he could hear her on conference calls, her voice commanding respect in a way that made his chest tighten with emotions he couldn't name. She'd moved fast, faster than he'd anticipated. By noon on the first day, she'd had every major client contact rescheduled. By evening, she'd requested financial audits going back 8 years. Nathan's reflection in his new, smaller window looked hollow, aged. He'd built an empire, but watching Sophia systematically take it apart piece by piece, he realized she was better at this game than he'd ever been. "Sir?" Emma Rodriguez knocked on his door, her usual confidence replaced by nervous energy. "Chen wants to see you in the boardroom." The walk to the executive conference room felt like a condemned man's final march. The mahogany table that had witnessed countless corporate victories now felt like a tribunal. Sophia sat at the head, papers spread before her like battle plans. She'd changed from her usual conservative attire into a sharp black suit that made her look dangerous, untouchable. "Sit," she said without looking up. Nathan took a chair halfway down the table, maintaining distance. But Sophia gestured to the chair immediately to her right. Here, the proximity was unsettling. He could smell her perfume, could see the slight tremor in her hands that betrayed the cost of her newfound power. For 3 years, he'd worked to keep her at arm's length. Now, sitting close enough to touch, he realized the distance had been as much for his protection as hers. "I've been reviewing the Singapore files more thoroughly," Sophia said, sliding a thick folder across the table. "There are discrepancies." Nathan opened the folder, his blood running cold as he recognized bank statements, medical records, correspondence. She'd been thorough, more thorough than his own investigators had been 7 years ago. "The leak about Blackstone didn't come from the hospital," Sophia continued, her voice clinical. "It came from within Cross Industries. Someone with access to your files, your travel schedule, someone who knew you'd be in Singapore that week." Nathan's hands stilled on the papers. "That's impossible. I've been over these files hundreds of times, with guilt clouding your judgment." Sophia leaned closer, her dark eyes intense. "Look at the timeline again. The leaked information hit the market 3 hours before my father ever saw you in the emergency room." The revelation hit Nathan like a physical blow. He'd spent 7 years believing he was responsible for Dr. Chen's death, 7 years carrying guilt that had shaped every decision, every relationship, every moment of his life. "Who?" The word came out as a whisper. Sophia's smile was sharp, predatory. "That's what we're going to find out, together." Nathan looked up sharply. You owe my father justice. You owe me justice. But if someone in your company destroyed both our lives, then we have a common enemy." She stood, moving to the window that overlooked the city. "Besides, I need access to files that only you can provide. And you need someone who understands how deeply this goes." Nathan studied her profile against the afternoon light, seeing something new in her posture, not just anger or hurt, but determination with a sharp edge that reminded him uncomfortably of himself in his more ruthless moments. "What do you propose?" Sophia turned back to him, and Nathan caught his breath at the intensity in her gaze. "A partnership. Temporary, conditional, and with very clear terms." "What terms?" "We find whoever really leaked the Blackstone information. We clear my father's name publicly. And when it's over, you sign Cross Industries over to me." The audacity of it should have infuriated him. Instead, Nathan felt something that might have been admiration. "And if I refuse, then I release everything I know to the financial press and watch your company burn from the outside." She moved closer, close enough that he could see gold flecks in her dark eyes. "But if you agree, we do this my way. No more lies, no more games, no more protecting your reputation at the cost of the truth." Nathan found himself studying her face, searching for any sign of the woman who'd brought him coffee every morning for 3 years. She was still there, beneath the armor she'd constructed, but changed. Harder, more dangerous. "There's something else," he said slowly. "Something I haven't told you about Singapore." Sophia's expression didn't change, but he saw her shoulders tense slightly. "What?" Nathan took a breath, knowing that what he was about to reveal would change everything between them again. "Your father didn't just return those documents. He saved them. When the real leak happened, he called me, said he had proof that someone else was responsible, that he could clear both our names." The silence stretched between them like a taut wire. Sophia's face had gone pale, her hands gripping the back of her chair. "He was driving to meet me when he had the heart attack," Nathan continued. "The proof died with him. Or so I thought." Sophia's voice was barely audible when she finally spoke. "What are you saying?" Nathan met her eyes, seeing his own desperate hope reflected there. "I'm saying your father was a brilliant man who understood the value of evidence. If he had proof, he would have hidden it somewhere safe. Somewhere only someone who knew him well would think to look." For a moment, Sophia looked exactly like the vulnerable woman Nathan had spent 3 years trying to protect from his own darkness. Then her expression hardened again, but now with purpose rather than anger. "Then we're going to Singapore," she said. "We're going to find whatever my father hid. We're going to destroy whoever really killed him." The Singapore heat hit them like a wall as they exited Changi Airport. But the humidity was nothing compared to the tension that had been building between them during the 18-hour flight. Nathan had watched Sophia work through her father's final months, constructing timelines and theories with the focused intensity of a surgeon. Somewhere over the Pacific, admiration had given way to something more dangerous, more complicated. The Raffles Hotel stood like a monument to colonial elegance in the heart of the city, its white facade gleaming in the tropical sun. Dr. Chen had kept a small apartment here during his medical residency, a detail Sophia had remembered only after. Nathan mentioned her father's connection to the city ran deeper than one emergency room encounter. "Apartment 4B, Sophia said, checking the address on her phone as they stood in the building's marble lobby. The space felt frozen in time, all dark wood and brass fixtures that spoke of old money and older secrets. Nathan carried her laptop bag, a gesture that had started as politeness, but had become something more intimate during their journey. Their fingers had brushed when she'd handed it to him at baggage claim, and neither had acknowledged the electricity that had passed between them. The apartment was exactly as Dr. Chen had left it, according to the building manager who'd known him for 30 years. Sophia stood in the doorway, her breath catching as she took in the space that still held traces of her father's presence. Medical journals stacked neatly on the coffee table, a half-finished crossword puzzle, reading glasses folded precisely on the desk by the window. "He always said he'd come back here to retire," Sophia whispered, moving deeper into the apartment. "Said Singapore felt like home in a way New York never did." Nathan watched her run her fingers along the spines of medical textbooks, her professional composure cracking to reveal raw grief. Sight of her vulnerability hit him harder than he'd expected, and he found himself wanting to comfort her in ways that had nothing to do with their temporary partnership. "The proof he mentioned," Nathan said gently. "Where would he have hidden it?" Sophia was quiet for a long moment, her gaze moving around the apartment with systematic precision. He had a safe in every place he lived. Nothing fancy, just a small, fireproof box for important documents. They found it behind a false panel in the bedroom closet, exactly where her father's methodical nature would have placed it. The combination was Sophia's birthday, and Nathan watched her face crumple slightly. As the lock clicked open, inside were medical certificates, property deeds, and a thick manila envelope marked with Nathan's name in Dr. Chen's careful handwriting. Sophia's hands shook as she opened it, revealing bank statements, recorded phone calls, and photographs. That painted a picture of systematic corporate espionage. James Mitchell, Nathan breathed, staring at a photograph of his business partner meeting with a known industrial spy in a Singapore hotel bar. My best friend since college. The man who helped me build this company. Sophia spread the documents across the small dining table, her analytical mind already connecting dots. He knew about your travel schedule, had access to all your files. He leaked the Blackstone information to drive down stock prices so he could, by controlling interest in the companies involved. Nathan sank into a chair, the betrayal hitting him like physical pain. James had been more than a business partner. He'd been the brother Nathan never had, the one person he'd trusted completely. He let your father take the blame to protect himself. And when my father discovered the truth, James made sure he couldn't expose it. Sophia's voice was cold, clinical, but Nathan could see the rage burning beneath the surface. Nathan's phone buzzed with a text message. He glanced at it, then went pale. Sophia, we need to leave. Now. What? Why? He showed her the message from James. No, you're in Singapore. Know what you found. Come alone to Marina Bay, or she dies. Attached photo showed Emma Rodriguez tied to a chair in what looked like a warehouse, her eyes wide with terror above a gag. Sophia stared at the image, her face cycling through shock, fear, and fury. He has Emma. He's been watching us this whole time. Nathan was already moving, gathering the documents. This is my fault. I should have seen this coming, should have protected everyone better. Stop. Sophia caught his arm, her grip surprisingly strong. We're not doing this alone. We're not giving him what he wants. Sophia, he'll kill her. James has crossed every line already. What's one more murder to protect his secret? She was quiet for a moment, her dark eyes calculating. When she looked up at him, Nathan saw something. That made his blood run cold. Then we give him exactly what he expects. We walk into his trap. That's suicide, Sophia said, her smile sharp and dangerous. That's justice. But Adada, but first, I need you to do something for me. Nathan found himself nodding before she'd even explained. Andy realized with startling clarity that somewhere between New York and Singapore, between anger and understanding, he'd fallen completely under her spell. I need you to transfer controlling interest in Cross Industries to me. Right now, before we leave this apartment. The request hit him like a slap. You want me to sign over my company? Now. If James kills us both, he gets everything anyway. This way, if something happens to you, I can still destroy him. Her voice softened slightly. And if something happens, to me, you'll have a reason to keep fighting. Nathan stared at her, seeing past the tactical reasoning to the woman beneath. She was asking him to trust her with everything he'd built, everything he'd sacrificed for. More than that, she was asking him to choose her over his fear, her justice over his safety. Without hesitation, Nathan pulled out his phone and called his lawyer in New York. 20 minutes later, Sophia Chen owned 75% of Cross Industries. Why? She asked as he ended the call. Nathan met her eyes, seeing his own desperate hope reflected there. 'Cause 3 years ago, I chose my company over doing what was right. I won't make that mistake again. As they prepared to walk into what might be their final confrontation, Nathan realized that losing his empire to the daughter of the man he'd failed to save felt less like a defeat and more like the first honest thing he'd done in years. The Marina Bay warehouse district stretched along Singapore's waterfront like a graveyard of rusted metal and broken dreams. Nathan and Sophia approached the coordinates James had sent, their footsteps echoing hollow against the concrete. Evening air hung thick with humidity and the promise of a tropical storm. Whatever happens in there, Nathan said, stopping just outside the designated building. I need you to know something. Sophia turned to face him, her dark eyes unreadable in the fading light. The woman who'd brought him coffee every morning. For 3 years was gone, replaced by someone harder, more dangerous, but also somehow more real. What? I spent 3 years trying to keep you at arm's length because I was terrified of this. He gestured between them at the electric current that had been building since their first honest conversation. Not just the attraction, but the way you make me want to be better than I am. A smile ghosted across her lips, there and gone like lightning. Save the confessions for after we survive this. They entered the warehouse through a side door that had been left deliberately unlocked. Inside, shipping containers created a maze of shadows and blind corners. Emergency lighting cast everything in harsh angles and deep blacks. At the center of the space, James Mitchell stood beside a chair where Emma was bound, a gun held casually. At his side, Nathan James called out, his voice echoing in the vast space. Always predictable. I told you to come alone. And I told him I don't take orders from cowards, Sophia replied, stepping into the light beside Nathan. James laughed, but the sound held no warmth. Dr. Chen's daughter. You know, your father was just as self-righteous, just as naive about how the world really works. My father was a better man than you'll ever be, Sophia said, her voice steady. Despite the gun pointed in their direction, your father was going to destroy everything I'd built. 20 years of careful planning, strategic positioning, building relationships with people who could make or break companies. James's facade of casual control was starting to crack. One emergency room doctor thought he could bring it all down. Nathan stepped forward slightly, drawing James's attention. So you framed him. Let him die believing the world thought he was corrupt. I protected us both. The investigation would have led back to Cross Industries eventually. Died with him. James gestured with the gun toward Emma, who was conscious but clearly terrified. Just like this dies here, the recording, Sophia said suddenly. All those phone calls you made? My father documented everything before he died. For the first time, James looked uncertain. You're bluffing, am I? Sophia pulled out her phone, pressing play on an audio file. James's voice filled the warehouse, clear and unmistakable. Discussing payment schedules with industrial spies and planning the frame job that had destroyed Dr. Chen's reputation. James's face went white, then red with rage. Hey, you have no idea what you're dealing with. I've killed for less than this. It's like you killed my father. Sophia's voice was ice. Your father killed himself with his misplaced sense of honor. I just gave him the rope. The admission hung in the air like a physical presence. Nathan saw the moment Sophia's careful control finally snapped. Saw her hand move toward the weapon he hadn't known she was carrying. But James was faster, his gun swinging toward her. Time slowed to amber. Nathan threw himself between them. Feeling the bullet tear through his shoulder as he tackled James, they went down hard. Nathan's weight driving the air from James's lungs. The gun skittered across the concrete floor. Sophia was there instantly, pressing her hands against Nathan's shoulder to stop the bleeding. You idiot, she whispered, but her voice was thick with emotion. Had to? Nathan gasped. Couldn't let him hurt you too? James struggled to his feet, reaching for the gun, but Emma had worked one hand free and kicked it away from him. In the distance, sirens wailed, growing closer. Singapore police don't take kindly to kidnapping and attempted murder, Sophia said, helping Nathan sit up against a shipping container. Especially when the evidence is this overwhelming. James looked around the warehouse, trapped and desperate. For a moment, Nathan thought his former friend might try to run. Instead, James laughed, the sound broken and bitter. You think this changes anything? I'll be out in 5 years, maybe less. Money buys justice, Nathan. You taught me that. Not this time, Sophia said. She pulled out her phone again, showing James a live stream that had been broadcasting there. Entire conversation. 60,000 viewers and counting. Including every major financial news outlet in 3 countries. James's face crumpled as he realized the scope of his exposure. 20 years of careful reputation building, destroyed in 20 minutes. The police arrived like a storm, filling the warehouse with voices and movement. As they led James away, in handcuffs, he looked back at Nathan with something that might have been regret. I'm sorry, he said, about everything. Nathan watched his oldest friend disappear into the night, feeling hollow. So am I. 2 weeks later, Nathan sat in his new office on the 38th floor of what was now officially the Chen Cross. Building his shoulder was healing, though it still ached in the mornings. Through his window, he could see Sophia in the corner office that had once been his. On a video call with clients who were eager to work with the company that had exposed one of the biggest corporate espionage cases in recent history, the door opened and Sophia entered carrying 2 cups of coffee. She set one on his desk and settled into the chair across from him, her movements as precise as ever, but somehow softer now. "The Memorial Fund is approved," she said. "The James Chen Medical Ethics Foundation will provide scholarships for students who can't afford medical school." Nathan nodded, his throat tight. He would have liked that. And the Singapore hospital has formally cleared his name. Full public apology, restoration of his medical license posthumously. They sat in comfortable silence, sipping their coffee. As the city moved below them, the dynamic between them had shifted since Singapore, becoming something neither of them quite knew how to name. Partners, allies, something more complicated and infinitely more dangerous. "I've been thinking," Sophia said eventually, about the terms of our partnership. I think they need revision." Nathan's heart skipped. He'd been dreading this conversation, the moment when she would claim her victory and send him away. "What did you have in mind?" Sophia stood, moving to the window. The afternoon light caught the gold in her dark hair, and Nathan found himself memorizing the sight. Equal partners. 50-50 split. Chen Cross Industries. "Sophia, you don't have to. I want to." She turned back to him, and Nathan saw something in her expression that made his chest tighten with hope. "You gave up everything to do what was right. It means something." Nathan rose, moving to stand beside her at the window. Below them, the city stretched toward the horizon, full of possibilities and second chances. "And us?" he asked quietly. Sophia turned to face him, close enough that he could see the flecks of gold in her dark eyes. "I think," she said slowly, "that we have time to figure that out." When she kissed him, soft and hesitant at first, then with growing certainty, Nathan tasted coffee and possibility and something that might have been forgiveness. Outside, the first drops of rain began to fall, washing the city clean. 7 years of guilt couldn't be erased overnight, and 3 years of hurt wouldn't heal without scars. But as Nathan held the daughter of the man he'd failed to save, feeling her heart beat against his chest, he realized that sometimes the best justice wasn't punishment or revenge. Sometimes it was the chance to build something better from the ebb. Ashes of what had been destroyed. Don't forget to like this video if it touched your heart. Subscribe for more inspiring stories and share to spread kindness. The end.